Hello guys, welcome to IB360. So this is the fourth class on enzymes. Today we will talk about the factors which are influencing enzymatic activities. So there are total 8 factors which influence enzyme activities. The first one being temperature. So we know that enzymes are always active within a narrow range of temperature, which is known as the optimum temperature. Okay, so optimum temperature for human body, it's 37 degrees Celsius, the room temperature. So all enzymatic activities, they tend to take place at this room temperature, and this is the body temperature of most warm blooded animals, not just human beings. Now enzyme activities decrease above and below this temperature. Okay, why? Because below this temperature enzymes become inactive. Below this temperature, that means when when the environment is cold, the becomes inactive, and that is why we tend to store food inside refrigerator, because inside refrigerator, one point is the enzymes inside the food material would be inactive, and secondly, bacterial enzymes also would be inactive, so they won't be able to degrade the food. And above this particular temperature, enzymes undergo a process known as denaturation. Okay, enzymes undergo denaturation. This is the process. Now there is a very interesting uh, fact which you will know now, that is, at high temperature, that means at 50 degrees Celsius or above, enzymes, they break or they degrade. Okay, at maximum temperatures they're degrading, they're destroyed, but catalysts remain unaffected. Okay, this is a very interesting difference between enzymes and catalysts. And here a very beautiful example I can give you is that of manganese dioxide, MnO2, which is a catalyst that helps break hydrogen peroxide into water and hydrogen, H2O2 into water and oxygen. Sorry. And this is an exothermic reaction. It is an exothermic reaction. It gives out a lot of heat, and this heat increases the temperature manifolds of the environment, but MnO2 does not get denatured because MnO2 is a catalyst. So the essential difference between catalysts and enzymes is that one is organic, other is not. Enzymes, they are biocatalysts. They are created in such a way to function inside biological systems, living organisms, inside living organisms. But catalysts, they are inorganic in nature, and they are performing their task in the environment, not inside biochemical systems, so they can't be denatured by extreme temperatures. Okay, another important trend which we tend to observe is, with every 10-degree centigrade fall in temperature, the rate of reaction decreases twice, or we can say the other way around. So in between, rather, actually this will be the more correct version of this, that between our minimum and maximum temperatures, maximum optimum temperature, or just temperature we can say, with every 10-degree rise in temperature, the velocity or the rate of reaction doubles. So one is with every 10 degrees centigrade rise, the rate of reaction will double. This is the second important fact which you must know. So this is all about the influence of temperature. What is that? That first of all, we have an optimum temperature of 37 degrees centigrade, which is the room temperature or the body temperature of most warm-blooded animals. And below that, the enzymes will freeze or remain inactive. And above that, the enzymes will undergo denaturation. But this is not the case for catalysts, because catalysts are not same as enzymes. They are not biochemical elements, rather they are functioning in our physical environment, right? Whereas enzymes are catalysts inside the biochemical systems, so they are biocatalysts and they are sensitive to temperature. Catalysts are not, they remain unaffected, and this is the example which I gave. And the last point for temperature is this, that they tend to show a trend of doubling the velocity of the reaction if there is a 10-degree increment in temperature between our minimum and maximum temperature. That means at the optimum levels. Okay, now the next thing is pH. Obviously we know that there is again optimum pH for every enzymes. I think I have talked about this in previous classes also. For pepsin it is 2, for trypsin it is 8.5 and all this. Then comes enzyme concentration. So see, for enzyme concentration, this thing, we follow a graph, something like this. So this x-axis is the concentration of enzyme and y-axis is the rate of reaction. So as enzyme concentration is increasing from 0, the rate of reaction is also increasing, as you can see. But at one point of enzyme concentration, and the rate of reaction achieves its maximum value, which is this value. Okay, this value, and after that it attains saturation. That means even if we are increasing the enzyme concentration, the rate of reaction is not increasing. It has achieved its maximum level, which is this, and now it is parallel to the x-axis. So this is the limiting effect. This is known as the limiting effect of enzyme concentration. Okay. So the rate of biochemical reaction rises with increase in enzyme concentration up to a point, and that is known as the limiting or saturation point. So this is our limiting or saturation point. Okay, and beyond this, whatever you are increasing the enzyme, it will have 0 to little effect. The next thing is product concentration. If the products are allowed to remain in the area of the reaction, the rate of forward reaction will fall, because we know that biochemical reactions are reversible. So even reverse reaction can also start. Okay, we can again get back to the substrates, the reactants. Then comes activators. Activators can be coenzymes also. Okay, like K plus or Mn2 plus, which are metallic cofactors, and they help, or rather they participate in converting zymogens to their active states. That means proenzymes to enzyme state. For example, a very famous example, HCl in stomach. It's an activator. HCl activates the proenzyme pepsinogen, which is a zymogen, into pepsin, its active form. Okay, so zymogen is the pepsinogen. Zymogens are inactivated enzymes. Okay, so from there you get pepsin, and thereby HCl is an activator. Another interesting fact about pepsin is pepsin itself acts as an activator sometimes because it has autocatalytic properties. Okay, pepsin has autocatalytic property. That means it can catalyze its formation. If you have a little bit of pepsin already formed from inactivated pepsinogens, then that little amount of pepsin will catalyze that conversion of the rest of pepsinogen into pepsin. That is why it is known as it is an catalyst. Anyway, then we have protein poisons. So protein poisons can be cyanides, azides, also salts of heavy metals. They will destroy the tertiary structure of enzymes by either combining with their cofactors or a group of apoenzyme. Apoenzyme is the protein part of the holoenzyme. So protein poisons, what they will do? They will form bonds with the cofactors or they will form bond with the apoenzyme. And like this, they will destroy the tertiary structure, the 3-degree organization of the enzyme, and thereby hinder with its processes. Then radiation energy, high energy radiations, we know, break hydrogen bonds. Also other bonds like ionic bonds, weak linkages, van der Waals forces, and that will again destroy enzyme structure. So both protein poisons and radiation energy will destroy our enzyme structure, and thereby make it unavailable for the function, for the job it has been assigned. And with product concentration also we have an inhibitory effect. Activators, they're activating the reaction. Enzyme concentration also, up to a certain limit it will activate. A proper pH will also activate. A proper temperature will also activate. And now substrate concentration, of course, if we have a proper substrate concentration, we will have a nice reaction going on. But there is again a limit. So increase in substrate concentration increases the rate of reaction, that we know, that is very clear. But why do this happen? Why is this enhancement? So the enhanced rate is due to two factors. The first one is occupation of more and more active sites by the substrate. Occupation of more and more active sites which are present on the enzymes by the substrate. And second reason is increase in collision, because now it will be more crowdy, so more substrate molecule, that means that will involve more collision against each other, so increase in collision rate, which will increase the energy of the system. So these are the two reasons why substrate concentration enhances the rate of the reaction. But as you can see from this graph, this also attains a saturation after a certain concentration has been reached. So here you see the x-axis again is our substrate concentration, and y-axis is reaction velocity. So almost this is the maximum velocity as they are showing. So almost this is our saturation point. This is our saturation point. That means beyond this, whatever there is increase in substrate concentration, the rate of reaction will not increase anymore. It will be this. This is the maximum value actually, or if we are extending the graph a little bit more, then we might have found that. Anyway, that is not the issue. The other important term which is involved with this graph is Michaelis constant. See what is Michaelis constant. So Michaelis maintain constant, it is Km. It's a mathematical derivation or constant which indicates the substrate concentration at which the chemical reaction catalyzed by an enzyme attains half its maximum velocity. So if this is the maximum velocity here, and this will be its half value almost, then or a little bit lower, So this will be half the maximum velocity. So at half maximum velocity, whatever was the substrate concentration, that means this value is Km, or Michaelis constant. Okay, so what is Michaelis constant? Substrate concentration at half Vmax rate of reaction. So this is, if this is Vmax, that is maximum velocity, this will be half Vmax. So this is Michaelis constant. Okay, so this is all about today. Thank you for attending the class. Best of luck.